Business News Now and Britain's Conservative Party has launched what appears to be a charm offensive to woo back the nation's business leaders. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak pledged his support for industry, which has felt decidedly unloved by the Tory party over the past several years, particularly under former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. In an attempt to placate an increasingly jittery corporate community, Mr. Sunak brought along his well-regarded business secretary, Kemi Badenoch, but his disjointed comments may not have convinced industry captains that the government has a long-term business strategy.
Welcome, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Thanks, Kemi. You know, the growth in the world, the centre of gravity is shifting, and we need to make sure that in government, we are connecting all of you to the growth parts of the global economy. AI has the potential to transform every aspect of our lives. We all know that. Claire was here from Barclays, we were talking about that this morning. Now, you're right about having some sovereign capability around the entire stack, right, of foundation models. So, I'll be talking a little bit about that later today, but your broad point is absolutely right. What is our sovereign capability, particularly as it relates to national security, but also all elements of the stack, right? So we also need to think about compute power. Well, I'm trying to take more family holidays in the first instance, but so I'm not being coy, but we're imminently about to say something about exactly the point that you raised, because it's a really important one, but rest assured we're on it. We talk to not just business, but the defence community as well, to make sure the UK is well positioned, not just to capitalise on the opportunities that we all are aware of, but also to protect ourselves against the risks that the technology might pose.
Rishi Sunak with more on this and the other business headlines of the day, including trouble in another banking sector. Let's cross to London and speak to Arise Business correspondent Laurie Laird. Good to see you, Laurie. Welcome back.
Good evening, Charles.
Good evening to
Thank
you. The UK Prime Minister there apparently trying to win over business leaders. Many of them would say that it's about time. I mean, how were his comments received?
Well, Charles, you and I just watched those comments from Rishi Sunak. Did that mean anything to you? It just felt like a mishmash to me of everything that he thought business might want to hear. He did start his comments by saying, look, I have your back. I am very, very serious about business. Seems odd to many of us that he actually has to say that. This is a man who's worked in the finance sector, has a master's in business administration from one of the most elite universities in the world. The fact that he has to come out and say, I've got your back, caught many people by surprise. I didn't think his business was relieved that he admitted that he has a business problem, not him necessarily, but the Conservative Party has a business problem. Boris Johnson quite famously said some unkind words toward business. I can't repeat them on a family newscast, but he very much made the point that he was not going to go out of his way to court the business lobby. Rishi Sunak is making a break with that, is admitting that perhaps business is an important constituency to try and win over, but nothing that he said here, I think, will make business feel any better. They will feel a little bit better that somebody is taking their needs seriously. But what he said today is not going to change, not going to move the needle at all. I think one thing that business will pay a bit of attention to is Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the top finance official here in the UK, did say after this event today that he does believe that corporate taxes in the UK are too high. He would like to get those down, but can't do it at the moment. Business will be very happy to hear that. But I've got to say, Charles, business, I think, is less concerned about the level of taxation than the flexibility of taxation, the feeling that tax can change depending on a change of government, a change of leadership, the fact that business rates are not quite set and are very variable. That upsets business as much as the level of corporate tax rates.
Absolutely. And of course, this comes, Laurie, as the Confederation of British Industry, the country's biggest lobby group, appears to be on the brink of collapse.
Absolutely. I mean, and really on the precipice, Charles. And this is the thing. Forget about what Sunak said today. This is what everybody in the business community here in the UK is talking about. The Confederation of British Industry, there are a number of lobbying groups, but the CBI is very much the biggest, very much the most influential. And you and I have talked about the CBI before. The CBI has got itself embroiled in a number of situations. Some of its members, some of its executives were accused of a rape at a summer party in 2019. Another accusation found its way to the press on Friday. Right now, we're looking at Tony Danker. He is the ex-head of the CBI. He was forced to step down after allegations of his personal behavior. He is not meant to be in any way associated with these two allegations of sexual assault. These came under the leadership of somebody who came before him. And yet, this is really pushing the CBI to the edge. After the second allegation came out on Friday, the great and good of the British business world said, we are no longer having anything to do with the CBI. The CBI was forced to say, we're suspending all of our operations until July. And it kind of had to do that because there wasn't a government minister who was willing to meet with this organization with these clouds hanging over it. What happens next is anyone's question, but I'd be surprised, Charles, to see the CBI survive this. Just right before we came on air, the president of the CBI, a man called Brian McBride, he was responsible for the departure of Tony Danker, the man that we're looking at right now. He spoke to a couple of journalists and honestly did not sound all that repentant. He said that yes, there has been a toxic culture at the CBI, but that he is going to stay on and try and see things through. I think that the first thing that has to happen at the CBI, if it's to survive, is there to be an entirely new broom, an entirely new management structure that's put in there.
And briefly, Laurie, because I want to try and get to the trouble with Credit Suisse before we go. Mr. Sunak was introduced by his business secretary, Kemi Badenoch. I mean, how is she regarded by corporate leaders?
She's not. The corporate leaders want to see more of her. And of course, Kemi Badenoch, very popular with the Conservative Party. She was born in the UK, but spent some of her childhood in Nigeria. Of course, she made good running as for leadership of the Conservative Party. She has a wide portfolio, Charles. She has the Trade and Business Ministry. She also has the Equalities Ministry. So she is stretched quite thinly. Business likes the look of her. Business likes the sound of her. They would like to see more of her, but partially that is because she is viewed as very much a conservative leader in waiting.
Right, now let's turn to the big banking centre, Credit Suisse in Zurich. Further trouble and presumably more anxiety in the business world.
Absolutely. And to be honest, Charles, I think there should be more anxiety. We learned today that Credit Suisse lost $80 billion in deposits in the first quarter of the year. Not terribly surprising. The bank essentially went bust, but that is 9% of its deposit base. That is pretty hefty. But I think the thing that we need to look at going forward is after this merger between Credit Suisse and the United Bank of Switzerland, UBS, this the shotgun marriage essentially arranged by the Swiss authorities, we have to look at the circumstances behind this merger. One of the unique things about this merger is that bondholders had some of their losses wiped out at the expense of shareholders. This is not meant to happen, was not meant to happen after the great financial crisis. If you think of shareholders as the owners of the company, these are the people you think are going to take the losses rather than bondholders who essentially have lent to the bank. And this raises very big questions about that wrinkle, whether the fact that the Swiss authorities chose to favor shareholders over bondholders, does that really further tarnish the image of Switzerland as a banking hub?
Laurie, thanks very much indeed. Laurie Laird, Arise business correspondent, talking to me there from London.